Get enough whiskey.
I got enough for a good 10 minutes.
Salute.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Like I said, we should have had a thing out on the porch with us. We had it. And every musician on there who started the conversation before we got to the couch knows the same thing.
Right.
We always had the best conversation on the couch, and then we didn't shut up in time.
We did talk about a lot of random stuff out there.
We did. We can always go back to point, which is your area of expertise, which you can thank him for the lighting because it looks a lot better than what I was doing. But your filmmaking, everything, we'll get to that. But what started you in the filmmaking? That's what I want to know. We've never talked about that.
So the film side is actually the thing that came later for me over art or music or anything else. So what kind of took me there was when I was a kid, I started watching a lot of like old monster movies on TV, late night Channel 20, Creature Feature, Ghost Host kind of stuff around Maryland. Really appreciating these old Universal creatures, and you got into later stuff. Night of the Living Dead came on one time, and that blew me away when I was little. So I started really getting into the horror from a fan side of things, and that led me, because I did a lot of artwork and that, I got into makeup and special effects when I was like 12.
Okay.
So my dad bought me a tube of grease paint. There was a Bob Kelly, who was a famous makeup artist. He had a makeup store in Silver Spring, Maryland, where my dad was working. So he stopped by there, got me a tube of brown grease paint.
Sure.
So I had that at home, and I would make myself into a werewolf and all kinds of stuff, and was watching, I was reading magazines and books and all this, and how they were doing effects, and watching all the TV and stuff that I could. So that got me into like the whole movie making kind of thing, but more behind the scenes special effect kind of thing. So I wanted to be a makeup artist for many years growing up. And when I was about 17, 18, you can't go to school, at least you couldn't back then, for that kind of work. So
I want to ask is what's your decade? I'm not trying to give away your age.
this was I grew up in the 70s, so this would have been
This is
70s going towards 1980. So when I saw Friday the 13th, I was 13 or something.
Okay. But you're after like the black and whites, obviously, and then they've evolved these videos to more.
Even in the early 70s, when I was too young to watch them, they were like Christopher Lee and his The Horror of Dracula, all the Hammer films. They were color. Okay. So when you could catch those, they were heavily edited, obviously, but they were rolling those out on some channels when I was growing up. So I would watch all that. So yeah, very colorful, very bright. But so when I started getting into the makeup stuff, special effects, miniatures, matte paintings, you would have in movies, and glass paintings. You could paint on glass and then film through it and create a whole world around actors, in front of a warehouse, but you paint out the warehouse and you make it something else, space age. So I was learning all these different tricks and all that, and I started really falling in love with that. And then when I was around 15, 16, 17, I went more into music, and that kind of took me away from that. I discovered girls. And they related more to the music side of things than somebody that sat in their room and did makeup all night. It seemed weird to them.
But did you have anything to do with like the theater or anything like for school? You didn't
No. I didn't do anything. It was all my own.
Oh, okay.
But then later, I must have been around 18, 19, I started doing volunteer work at a cable access studio, kind of a Wayne's World kind of a thing, where I grew up in Maryland.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, you didn't move here till later. You're
right,
born and raised in Maryland. Okay.
Right, transplant. So I got involved with this cable station, all free. They weren't paying anybody. You just wanted to volunteer your time. But I learned about 3 camera shoots of a city council meeting and getting B-roll of the county fair that was on Main Street, USA, kind of a thing. So I got to learn shooting and editing, and then live switching, different cameras, ready camera 1, take camera 1. So I got to do all that when I was, not even 20. Mm-hmm. And that led to meeting people that took me into the wedding scene, all the social stuff, which I completely got burned on. I did that for like 5 or 6 years straight, just doing weddings and bar mitzvahs and different things for different clients. And I can't hear the Electric Slide anymore. There's some songs I just still can't hear.
Really?
They make me nauseous. I just heard every weekend I would hear the same thing. So that led me to doing commercials for different people. So I started buying gear, and I started getting editing equipment. For some reason, American Express sent me a gold card. I don't even know why. I applied for a regular one because I was like, I'm starting a business. And here's a gold card. I'm like, I'm maxing it out.
Yep.
Well, I get free money right here. Isn't that the way it works? I'm sure I'll get clients in. So I bought a bunch of
Till you
cameras.
get the bill in the mail. That's
Right,
when
yeah.
it
It kind
stops.
of came around. But before that happened, I was able to kind of build up my business side of things. So started my own company and kind of scaled down the social stuff because, again, getting burned out on that. But doing more commercial work and music videos and things that, you know, people just really weren't doing a whole lot, or if they had really big cameras and, you know, I had like the medium grade stuff, so I was trying to be more creative with it, and I was leaning back on, okay, I learned a bunch of special effects and, you know, forced perspective and fun things like that. How can I put those into these things? So I started kind of getting more creative art-wise with the shoots that I would do, and so that kind of led me into the whole filmmaking side, was dragging along, and the music side, of course, too, but bringing all these different things that I learned into working with people. And instead of just being, I'm a videographer, which I still don't like that word, but you know, the videographer around town, they shoot weddings and, you know, maybe do some still pictures, but
Yeah.
I would never really related to them. I wanted to do, okay, let's make it a little more artsy, let's do a little more cinematic, let's do this, the lighting like
Be more
this. And
innovative.
a little bit, yeah. People were getting kind of turned off by, there was 1,000 video wedding people out there, or people doing commercials that you'd put on TV, and all the local commercials all look the same. Here's an establishing shot of the building, here's some product stuff, and then you've got 20 people from the team on the front lawn, they're all waving at the camera, you know,
Yeah,
with the, call us now. It's like, you're never going to get that from me. I would never,
Yep.
unless it was done completely in jest, I would never
Well,
think
in
it's
all
a good
reality,
idea.
this is truly an art too, and you're obviously an artist, which we'll get to this later. But you can't be corporate with it if you want to be creative. I think it's a fine line you walk, no matter who you are. I feel like you were saying you didn't want to go across that line.
There were things I didn't want to do. There's things, and that's the weird part about being an artist or a musician. Some things you have to do because it's going to give you $100 or give you $50 or 200 maybe. You know, so sometimes you have to bend a little bit because someone wants something more typical, and it always would kill me a little bit inside to be in that place. So I'm like, no, let me do more, bigger and better things. And so even in the middle of doing all this local production, which was fine. I wasn't paying off my Amex card necessarily, but I was okay. You know, I was surviving okay. Then I was going to develop a movie with a guy that I had met recently around DC, and they wanted to bring in a director, which it wasn't me. I didn't have the chops to do that, but there was a guy whose music videos I really liked. He lived in Tulsa, so I said, okay, you got to pay to bring this guy out here. So we flew this guy out. It's like, dude, I love your work. So would you direct? We talked about the movie and through ideas and all. He says, yeah, if it gets off the ground, if you green light the thing, then sure, I'll come out and direct it. So we kind of hit it off. He went back to Tulsa a few months later. This film did not get off the ground completely.
And that's a common problem, which we can talk about.
Yeah, for sure. But in working up this kind of relationship with this dude out in Tulsa, he had called. We chatted on the phone a few times, and he said, "Hey, look, if you know anybody that is a good line producer, he's looking for one at his company in Oklahoma." And I said, "Well, I'm still doing the same kind of random shit I was doing before, so I can, you know, I was married at the time, and kids were very small." So I'm like, well, we'll move out to Tulsa. I'll be your line producer. He's like, yeah, we get along famously. So yeah, so we moved out to Tulsa. I was out there for about 3 years working with him. And it was almost exclusively music videos and live concerts, multi-camera stuff. And a line producer, for people that don't know what line producer is it's somebody that controls not just the budget. So if someone says, we have $10,000 to make a music video, you know, here's our budget for it. The line producer takes that and says, okay, here's much a day rate for the director and a producer on site and the project manager and the editor times how many days. So you kind of had to know the whole business process of it to start breaking down their budget for them.
Yeah.
Say, here's where we cover, here's all the, you know, miscellaneous fees, here's grip and electric, here's how much it is to get a truck out there, here's how many hours. So you kind of dictate the way the shoot goes to the director, because they're just sitting around waiting for someone to say, show up and start directing. So they're kind of the person that kind of puts the whole project together and builds the whole thing out. Is the line producer. That's how we had done it back there. So I was really fortunate to be able to do that on a number of projects, and that helped me with the financials of it and to know how long something takes to shoot. This is 4 hours for this is 8 hours for this, it's 3 days. you got to fly people over here. Let's include all that.
Yeah.
So I'm working with different, especially like production managers. Let's
Okay.
talk about this, and or the director of photography. How many days? What kind of crew do you need? What kind of lenses do you need? So I get to learn every day about different film kind of things, just being in that job.
This is the one question. Like I said, I understand this stuff to a point. I mean, I'm a big fan of it, but it's not something you have more knowledge in than I do. Is there very much kind of a chain of command, like how things fall? Like you have like Universal Studios, and then that goes from their executive to they pick a producer. How does it kind of fall down?
Usually, if you're talking kind of typical feature film thing, so a movie comes out, everybody loves it. They say, "What a great director!"
Mm-hmm.
Director gets an award for it because he directed, the talent and all that stuff that's in there. So the person who hired the director is generally the producer. The producer is somebody that gets put in place early on. From either the producer will find the executive producers. So you have executive producers up here. They basically fund the project. Mm-hmm. They go to, well, not Weinstein, but we'll pick somebody else that's got deep pockets and no ulterior motives. So they'll go out and chase down the money to make this film. They believe in this film. That's generally the producer behind it. So they get the money for it, then they find the director. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, Spike Lee, we want you to direct this film.
Okay.
So then now who do you see in these roles? So they'll work with the director. I see Denzel over here and this person over here. So then they start going through the casting and all that. So executive producers are supposed to just stay the hell out of the way, but they like to kind of float around because it's their money. They gave you $10 million to make a thing.
Now, tell me if I'm wrong, they do try to put input into it a lot of times, and it can be...
They can, and a lot of directors won't take any shit from producers or executive producers or the writers or anybody else that comes in. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, let me back up for a second. So the producers, speaking of writers, which I should always include because I write, they sometimes the producer will get their hands on a good script. So that's generally how it starts.
Okay.
So they don't generally have the idea. They will read something, they'll say, wow, Remains of the Day, Part 2, we need to make this movie.
Now,
then they'll chase down the money for it.
One thing, the writers, that is probably the most difficult part to kind of get from them to whoever needs to fund it, whoever needs to hear this. Because as well as I do, I mean, California, anywhere there's what you do, like in music, there's 1,000 musicians doing this.
Right.
And getting it across somebody's table is, half the battle. And then if you get the right person reading it, it's a good script, obviously.
Yeah.
Which you could speak on that far better than I could.
Getting a good script, that's the hardest part of the whole thing. Because there's writers everywhere. Every Starbucks has at least 10 writers working on a screenplay.
Uh-huh.
There's 1,000 different kinds of writers in any given city. So it's getting... And now it goes from writers to their agents and who can they get that in front of, or they enter to a screenplay competition, they get a couple of awards. Then it gets a little bit of heat on it, but there's 100,000 scripts for any genre and at any given day. Okay. To boil it down to being just that one, you got to know people. You got to either know or blow people is really how that goes to get your thing in front of the right people. Excuse the blow part if that's it. So I mean,
there's no filters on this.
It is very fucking It is very kind of
amen and shit.
It is. It's a very incestuous town, unfortunately, where you have good scripts that are out there, but they'll never be read because you got to know that person or do favors or you have to have written something before that they like. You have to have a name or. That's why people are always giving screenplays to people at lunch. It's like, oh, Mr. Such and Such, Mr. Spielberg, here's my latest thing. Will you read it? He's never going to read that.
No.
So
that poor guy probably gets molested more times in a day than we'd ever want to be sitting in a cafe or restaurant.
And unfortunately, with the writing side, and not to get too convoluted with the pattern here, but the writing side, so say you send in your screenplay to such and such studio. Yeah. It's going to go to the mailroom, and a guy there is going to read it. Mm-hmm. And if he likes it, maybe he'll give it to the guy that's making the copies. And if he likes it, maybe he'll give it to a secretary who is to somebody on a junior level. So it goes through all these things. People that actually, the readers for things are interns for the most part. And unless you strike them, the next Hangover, the next Good Buddy movie, oh, I laughed at this. I should show it to Bill over, in accounting and then see what he thinks. It's got to go through so many things before it gets to anybody that has any influence at all. Yeah. And so it could be the best script in the world, but if the intern doesn't like it, it's going right in the trash. Mm-hmm. So it's really who you know. You've got to go. You got to, bust your ass to get it in front of the right people. But it's a long process.
Now with that too, I mean, you can kind of roll that over into music kind of both ways, but do you think the internet has helped change script writing? Do you think that made it more difficult because more people are accessible to it now, or
I think the internet has changed in some good ways, some bad ways. And I'll clarify that by it's made it easier to get your stuff out there because you have a lot more competitions. And I belong to a group. I'll leave them unnamed because they've never done me any favors. But
Okay.
it's a writers group, screenplay group that they have these online classes you can take. Or one of the things that they offer is you can pay to send your script to somebody that works at a studio, at Blumhouse, like a big horror thing that's out there now. Like people in there are going to be critiquing screenplays. And if they choose you, you get $5,000 and a trip to Hollywood to actually pitch it to these people and all that. So there's these kind of semi-competitions everywhere out there. And without the internet, we wouldn't have the ability to even know about all these things. So there's ways to get yourself in front of the right people. It's still a scam. They still have the reader before the reader before the reader.
Right.
It's like this guy's not reading 1,000 scripts that come in. They don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
They want their assistant's assistant to go through quickly and just look for keywords, and they're like, oh, there's nudity and there's blood and this could sell. Yeah. Then it's got to go to the next thing.
But like you said, and they're essentially they're seeing so many that they're just getting overwhelmed, and they're just not bothering reading the actual writing of the content and seeing what you're trying to do with it.
They skim a lot, yeah, for sure. And there are some services you can do where you can pay somebody, again, it's all pay, everybody wants money, where you can pay somebody to give you notes back on a script. So you can send it in, here's my, again, Remains of the Day Part 2. Okay. What do you think? Merchant Ivory is going to love this. And someone will read through it, whether they're in the industry deep or not, you don't really know, but they say, okay, a reader has read your thing, and here's their you paid for 1 page of notes.
Okay.
And so they'll say, okay, your characters are this. So they at least kind of went through it. Your characters are this. Here's the storyline. We wrote a synopsis for you, which is basically the TV Guide breakdown to the thing. Well, that's a log line, but the synopsis is kind of the 1 pager. This is the whole movie in a nutshell. It opens with this, it closes with this. Here's all the details. So they will go through and kind of do that for you if you haven't done that. And they'll say, well, we saw a typo on this page, or it dragged a little bit in the beginning of the third act. So if you tighten this up and if you maybe throw in a couple more of these things, then it should be pretty good. Love the reader. So you get back notes, but that doesn't mean necessarily it goes anywhere beyond that. They would have to say A++++. I'm sending this on to my manager, which I don't think anybody's ever gotten.
Yeah.
So you can pay somebody, but it's still
the same principles of the music industry. That does. Right. But I'll ask you this: what you said about that, like that script you said, he just sent you back these just kind of essential bullshit notes. If you just knew the right people and you knew the script was good and you were using a different, I'll just use an example. Like I said, you can fill in the blanks. I'm not an expert, but you had the perfect dialogue, you had the perfect screen, and some parts dragged because you wanted them to. Mm-hmm. Now, it's going to go through them. It's going to get watered down. They're going to give you the same notes they give everybody because they're looking for production. But now take that, and you just happen to get in front of an executive producer, somebody you become friends with, and you hit that, and they read it, and they go, this makes great sense, and then it's off and running, which I'm sure a lot of movies have happened that way.
And that's what every writer is looking for, is for someone to discover and say, they get it. They get my script. Yeah. It's just what they're looking for, and they're going to give me a lot of money as a writer. And full circle around, then if that happens, then that gets in front of a producer to say, wow, this is really good. Let's find money for this from the executive producers. Let's find a director, James Wan, whatever. Let's get in somebody to actually make, let's start putting this thing together. Let's attach actors, let's and they want to pre-sell it. It's like, how is this going to do in China or, in Germany? And like they're selling markets for things before they're even made. They don't even have a poster done. And they're like, okay, we need money from you because this will be big in your thing. So they're kind of soft selling the concept to other countries to be guaranteed that there was interest there to get some of their money back over this way. So it's all money, can we get money? Because we're spending money, can we get that back? And we know we're going to get it back 5% at a time from different places.
So essentially when you have somebody who believes in what you do, it just it has to go to the money situation next, and then they start figuring it out.
It's all about, can we make $1 off of this? Yeah.
But tell me if I'm wrong, but there's always been like Oliver Stone and all these guys who wow, they just made a movie about him about 4 years ago. It was based off his life with I just forgot his name. One of the very first horror films, they flipped open the curtain. It's a very famous scene where he's about to stab her. She screams.
Hitchcock?
Hitchcock, yes, thank you. Wow, I just drew a blank on that. But he put up his house to do that. Like, he believed in that script so much that he put up, from what I understand from the movie, I could be wrong, it's been a while since I've seen it, but he believed in that so much and seen where it needed to go, and he just took it and ran with it and funded the whole thing by, putting his house up for collateral and everything else, selling everything that he had, and taking one more risk, and this is it.
Right. There's a lot of truth to that. People will bankroll things on their own, or they'll put collateral up of their own. So it's a little sensationalistic in one hand, because if they feel very passionate about getting something done and the studio's pushing back and it's like, no, Hitch, we don't want to make this film, Psycho, The Birds, whatever. Mm-hmm. We don't think the audience is ready for this. Find something else to do. And he's like, okay, then I'm going to pay for this by doing this and this. It's good publicity for Hitchcock or other people to say, we believe in this so much, we're willing to get rid of all of our own stuff just to make it happen. Wow, he's so passionate. Obviously, it's going to be good. Yeah. It's all marketing.
It is. I never thought. That's a very good point. It is like they even showed that. Like he was on the front cover of Ring magazine, and
you got directors on their knees and publicity shots begging to get something done. It's like, wow, look at this guy is actually on his knees. He really believes in this project. It's like, a photographer comes in. It's like, hey, how about getting on your knees? And, really show you want to make this. Well, I'd make $1 million tomorrow.
That makes perfect sense.
It's all marketing, which is what I love. I mean, the whole marketing side is what drives me in film or or art or anything else. It's all presentation.
Yeah.
But anyway, did we cover the executive producers, directors, writers? And then you director photography.
Yeah, you went down through the list, but like I said, the writers. It's where it starts and where it begins, and
they have nothing to do with after that. Once they buy it, it's like, we're going to option your screenplay. Here's an option, means we're going to guarantee you this much money on it, and if we actually make it, we'll give you a little bit more. But you can't talk to anybody else about it. We're going to give you want $100,000 for your screenplay. We're going to give you $5,000 to hold it. Okay. While we shop it around. It may never sell, but you can't do anything for like 3 years. You just have to sit on it. You don't talk to anybody. Right. You can't send it off. We have the rights to be able to either make or not this film. And pay to play is what they refer to it as. Okay. So they option this. They lease the script for so long a period of time, and after that period of time, if they don't do anything with it, the writer gets it back. But like the down payment is there. Mm-hmm. It's like pawning it, I guess, in a way. Like we're going to pawn your script. We'll give you like $5. It's worth $100, but you get $5 right now. So the writer's great. It's like if it goes to Hollywood, if they make a big thing, my name will be in credits. Mm-hmm. Maybe sometimes they will take your name off. If it's been rewritten enough times, it'll go to somebody else. You have to be very careful with contracts with that. Almost anything, but especially the writer. And if you wrote something, and they say, we love it, we're buying it. You want $100,000? We're going to give you $20,000 for it. Walk away. It's like $20,000. I'll make more. So here, take it. You get your check. You're happy. You tell all your friends you made $20,000. They go back, rewrite it numerous times. Your name's off of it. Mm-hmm. It's written by somebody else now. It's like, that's my idea. It's like you sold away your life when you took that check and you endorsed the back. You sent it to the bank. You have no more to say about this. You're not going to get any awards. Probably not. Or this other dude will if we rewrite it enough times. So
essentially, they're taking the base. They fell in love with the basis of that story, and they're just gonna.
They're
gonna cut it apart and make it their own.
They can.
Which, like you said, it's perfectly legal. I mean, if you sell it, that's
right. It belongs to them, and nobody really wants that. Everybody wants to be known for what they've done, and sometimes your name will stay attached to it, and you could even win an award. It's like, the screenplay was great and was written by this guy over here. He didn't make too much money, but this company read it and loved it, and they bought it, and now everybody can watch it everywhere. And here's an award for you. He will still be able to get that award for sure. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times they eliminate you. And if you want to go to set, when they're filming, hey, who's here? The writer's here. It's like, get him off the set. We don't want him here. Yeah. Because we want to be able to work with our actors the way we want to. And he's like, I didn't write the dialogue just like that. It's like, you have nothing to do with this film anymore. Yeah. Go back in your car, because now the movie is in the director's hands or, the producer's hands or people that are on set. the actors wanting to ad lib and do stuff. It destroys writers. They don't even let them around.
Yeah.
They're the lowest. They go from the highest creating it to the lowest on the totem pole when it's actually being filmed.
Yeah, and it's probably the same for somebody who writes a novel and they take those rights to make a film of it. Correct? Is that the same principle?
Well, generally, if you write a novel and then it's based on the novel, this movie is based on this novel, you still get that screen cred. How the payment goes for that, because you're not writing the screenplay. Because to write a novel and to try and make that into a movie, somebody else has to redo the whole thing, obviously, because it's all, you can't write you're not writing dialogue for screen. You're writing it because it's that fly on the wall, interpretation of a scene. It's like, that doesn't work on film. You have to it's got to be opens with this, fade in to this. Nobody writes like that when they're writing a novel. So
essentially, if it's a
it has to be
bigger
rewritten.
novel with a lot of detail, they got to break it down to fit 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely would be a different thing. Like like you said, a lot of times they don't bring anyone the writers or who wrote the novel. They don't bring them on to help them out. They figure, okay, we've done this. You stay out of it. We're gonna make this the way we choose.
Right.
And then, like Spike Lee and Quentin Tarantino and all them, how have they done this? I've listened to interviews, but it makes no sense to me. And they're like you. They're completely, well, not so much completely independent, but they're more independent from, say, Jerry Bruckheimer or name the biggest one.
Well, with Tarantino, because he was writing scripts before he made films. Like, he wrote True Romance, which director Tony Scott did, which is a great movie, by the way. True Romance was a great movie. True Romance. I tend to talk fast. Let me know if I talk too fast.
Yeah, you're fine. We'll slow you down.
So he was writing things before he did Reservoir Dogs, and then he got in touch with the right people, and that was a Weinstein thing back then too. You have to get to know the right people that'll help you make this, cheapy $100,000. I don't know what the budget was for that. It wasn't too much. It was more than $100,000, I'm sure, but make this low budgety kind of thing. But you've got Tim Roth in it, and you've got actors that are actually they're legit. Steve Buscemi. It's like you've got people that can carry a scene. So you've got your actors attached because you're generally the executive producer that says we're backing this thing. Hotshot young director. Let's go ahead and give him a shot. He's got a good eye. He's got a good vision. So that's what really kind of put, for Tarantino, for example, into the next level. And then because that was not wildly successful, but it was big enough for him to go on to Pulp Fiction, I'm pretty sure was his next one.
Yeah.
Yep. And then once he did that, it's like they give you a little bit more money, a little more star power, and he made that. After that, he could do anything he wanted because it's going to be, completely his vision. He's got Final Cut, which usually studios, once you do all the principal photography, all the shooting on location, you give it to the editor who maybe they have a relationship with, maybe they don't. The editor could be hired by the producer or the studio. It could be an in-house editor for them. But then if the director says, hey, can I come and watch you edit? A lot of times editors will say, no, I've got your footage. Let me do what I do.
Really?
Directors, for them to have what they call Final Cut, which means the director is in there during the process of this scene should be longer. Now I want you to cut to this person's face for the reaction. Editors will just do that on their own, and sometimes they kind of fuck up the whole story. Many movies have come out where it's like the editor completely lost the vision behind it. Sometimes they make it better. Usually they make it worse. But for a director to have Final Cut and be able to sit in there and do that, they have to be at a level. It's got to be in their contract that I have final say in how this thing gets released. But you have to be way up here.
Right. You have to be like a Jerry Bruckheimer or Steve Spielberg, like up
You
that
got to be
high,
somebody.
but Quentin, I think, pulled that off. I mean, he has.
You can do that because the budget still stayed fairly low. So as part of the negotiation, it's like I can make this movie for $20 million, not $200 million. For $20 million, I give you something that's guaranteed box office with these actors and all this stuff. So they wrote it all on paper and they figured out this is what's going to work. So for him to say, okay, I can bring this in for this. My fee to direct might normally be $100,000. I'm going to do it for $20,000. We'll be shooting for 6 months. I'll do it on the cheap, but I need Final Cut. If you have enough people behind you to say, hey, this guy's got a good eye. I mean, let's go ahead and do this because what's the biggest gamble we have? If we hate it, maybe we go back and kind of do a few tweaks on our own. We'll work with them. We'll massage it afterwards if we need to. Otherwise, let's give the kid, his vision. we have one of our editors in there, so we know it's not going to go completely off the rails. Not like a David Lynch weird or 5 minutes of a dog, you know.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and give this guy, and so you prove that, and then the next, all your other things are like, I have Final Cut on all this. Woody Allen, Final Cut, you know, there's obviously people like Spielberg, you wouldn't mess around with his work. I mean, there's directors that come into play once they've achieved a certain level, but even younger people, they take a cut and pay, they are kind of shepherding the project from the very inception on through, or they wrote it as well. They're like, I really need to have this. Sometimes they'll do it, sometimes they won't. It's not guaranteed.
Right.
You always want to fight for that, but you're fighting for it.
Yeah, I think tell me if I'm wrong, it's more of a matter if they're very passionate about it, they have that vision, and then they just go for it. It's like, I got this, just let me have
They
it.
can, but sometimes there's a Hollywood name that a lot of directors will default. They have before in the past. They've defaulted to when they didn't want their name in the credits because it just turned out so badly. So Alan Smithy is a Hollywood name. So
Okay.
Smithee generally, or it could be like an EY, but I think it's like EE. Alan Smithy. If you ever see like directed by Alan Smithy, it's completely a play on the fact that the real director did not want any screen credit for it. To like just put in
Really?
another name. So that's the name they chose to go in, kind of the anonymous thing. And that's because, you know, it's like, hey, we got a great movie. You know, Warren Beatty's going to be in it, and he just wrecks the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not reshooting. I did it. It was perfect. And he walks away. It's like, that's Warren Beatty. Let him do what he's doing. It's like, no, the scene did not work. And it's like, okay, my name is now Alan Smithy because if it goes on my name out there and it tanks, another Ishtar kind of a thing, like this is going to be a completely awful movie. I will never work in this town again. So change my name to this, and at least I'll have a second shot at doing this again.
That's a smart idea, really. Especially if you know it's like, I've done all I can, just drop it right there. I'm going to sign this name.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant idea.
I'm sure there's a
I
lot
can't
of
think of
people out
it. The funniest thing is I can't think of any musician who would have done that. You know, recorded a song like, oh, hell with this. We'll see how it goes. Here, take it.
I'm sure there's got to be examples out there of musicians that are like, yeah, I played drums on that, but boy, what a shitty record.
What a shit show.
But, yeah.
What?
Put in something else in there.
I got to look that up.
That could be a thing.
It could be. The other thing too, did you teach at Bucknell, or did you start as a student? But I know you're a teacher there.
No, neither. I came. So my story of living here in Pennsylvania was all right. So I was doing film stuff with this guy in Tulsa. They moved their company to Nashville. I didn't want to move to Nashville. I didn't like Nashville. So I went back to Maryland, started working in art again at an exhibit company, doing things through that, left there, started working at a TV studio, producing a live music show. That's a different topic, but from there, then I had my own company again, doing commercials and that kind of stuff. And then I answered an RFP, a request for a proposal that went out from Bucknell back about 2006, late 6 to 2007, somewhere in that range, to do a big 15-minute presentation, you know, a big event. You know, we need to come out for many days and film this thing. So I wrote up this idea, sent it over, didn't know anybody there at all. So I sent it over. So they liked that idea, so they hired me. Usually I say they hired us to come out and film it, but they hired me. There's no us. What us? I bring people along. It's like what the team, hey. Yeah. I did bring some people, came up to town, did some stuff, so shot in town for a long time, got to meet people and all that. So they liked this final video, cinematic kind of a thing that we did for them.
Okay.
At the time, they had nobody in-house doing video. That was their thing. They had one person, the person who had actually hired me and sent out the proposal, that was doing photography, a very light video work, but she worked in the communications department there. But nobody was devoted to just doing video in the thing. So after doing this project for them, went back home. They called a few weeks later, hey, can you come back up and do a bio on this student? Sure. Go back home. Hey, can you come back and do a thing on a faculty person? Sure. So it was back and forth and back and forth. So I was going from Frederick, Maryland, where I lived, to Lewisburg. Every other weekend I'd be coming back and forth. And 9 months, 10 months of doing that, my contact over there had said, you know what, we've decided that we need to just have a video person full time because we're paying you a lot of money to come here, just go back and forth. We could pay somebody less and just be here
Gas
full
alone
time.
and lodging.
Right.
Break them after a while.
Exactly. So they decided they were going to just make this position, and that was the thing that I wound up getting. I had to apply for it like other people did.
Yeah.
But I wound up getting that job and moved here in 2008. And I started working in communications to be their sole in-house full-time video person. So I kind of started that group there. I could bring in some students, and then I could hire a person, you know, and then I could hire a second person. So I kind of built up the thing, doing all the in-house marketing for the university. And that went to about 10 years later, a few years ago. And then left from there and did the full-time thing on my own again. That's where I am now.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't realize that was. Glad you told me the history. I would have messed it up. Well, I kept thinking they had, because they're well known for their engineering degrees above all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I thought they had a video doing anything with filmmaking or something. I thought they had that there because they're artsy too. I mean, they have the art.
They are
area.
very, being a liberal arts university, they had a lot of great department. The English department there, which a good friend of mine I still work with, who actually helped on your music video, Daniel.
Yeah.
He still works there. He's in the English department, and he teaches hands-on camera basics and lighting, and so there's a film and media studies part that's there. They get to study film and shoot and edit and screen and all this. So Daniel runs the studio that they can come down and do green screen work in and borrow gear, and he kind of keeps track of all that. So they do have the film side kind of going through there. It's not the whole focus, obviously, but there's enough things in there that is the kind of the appreciation of film. And here's a bunch of cameras and some editing and a good audio board and post-production room.
Yeah.
So they kind of built that in over the last few years. So they put more emphasis on it. When I started there, they didn't have this. They kind of realized that, hey, this video thing's not going away.
Yeah.
This isn't a fluke.
Yeah, you need to keep it going. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So they've been developing a bit more with their the artsy side of that. And I've been kind of out of touch with my prior department that I was in communications. I knew they're still doing photography and video and all that, but I don't really pay attention to it.
Yeah. Well, when did you start Creature Features Design? Was that in between coming to Pennsylvania? Or I like I said, I don't remember the timeline very well. So
I had numerous companies throughout the years. Creature Features started. That was after I was here, and I was still at the university, and they did not. Thank God they did not discourage your own creative work, so even doing video for other people, they were like, yeah, just don't do stuff for other universities and do whatever you want. So I was still able to kind of get in music videos and to do, other creative kind of works. And when we did our first movie, The Feed, back in 2010, we created a company for that called Fist in Post Films. Fist in Post. Fist in Post Films. So we created that, wrapped around that movie to be the kind of candy shell around that. So if it did well or it did terribly, it was protected by this. It's basically like making a corporation around a film. So Fist in Post. So that was a thing that was around this movie. So then once the movie kind of came and went and other projects were going, I used that same moniker to do a couple of other independent things, and I was realizing it's like, no, I need to create a different company. I don't want to drag along the thing that was made for this one feature film into different kind of other productions. It's not fair to this, and if something happens with this, I don't want to interfere with what's happening over here. Somebody sues the movie, it shouldn't hurt a client I had a year later in a different area. So
yeah, that does make sense very much.
So Creature Feature Design kind of came into being because I was just getting into a studio space at the Pajama Factory in Williamsport. So I'd rented up there to do not so much the video stuff, but to do get back into special effects and making silicone creatures and people and doing life castings and body painting and like get back into the arts a little heavier. So I got a studio over there, and that's when I decided, okay, I need to create a different kind of a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So Creature Feature Design. So the logo that I had come up with was, so it was a face that has a line through it, kind of at an angle like this.
Okay.
And one half of the face is this kind of old school, kind of monstery looking thing, big eye, and snaggle teeth and all that. And on this side is a pretty like female face, like a normal kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it was like the creature side and the feature side. That makes sense.
It does,
so-
yeah.
so
now that you mentioned the
creature
thinking back to the
and
logo,
feature.
yeah, it does make sense.
So
now.
I was doing like the beauty stuff and the the more artsy things over here, but also the horrific and monster stuff over here. So I
Yeah.
wanted to like that division. But luckily, the show I grew up with, I'd mentioned before, when I was a kid, was on late night TV. Was Creature Feature. Had a host that would come on. He was a Dracula type character. And he would introduce movies, and he'd have in betweens, and it was very funny. And so that was my youth growing up. So it's kind of paying homage to that, as well as like, wow, this actually works for the makeup side of things, the beauty side, and the monster side, and and Creature Feature from before. So now, as the company is, the majority of things that I do are going to be in video, music videos, and commercial stuff, and image pieces, and all that. So that's like 80% of what I have up here. Like a 15% would be photography, and like the bottom 5% would be art.
Yeah, and you edited a video last year, correct? I forget the name of it. You gotta help me out.
Who?
It's been a minute, man.
I've edited videos, probably.
Yeah, but you had a big piece on it on your Facebook page and stuff. It was last year because I remember that was mid-year.
Was it a band? Was it?
No, it was an independent film you were being a part of.
Oh,
yeah.
so was it my movie, the second movie we did, or was it something
Second, I believe so. That sounds more correct. Like I said, you're jarring my memory, but
Okay,
it was,
sure.
you posted it numerous times, and I kept.
It could if it was a movie called The Lost Within, then
That's the one. Thank you.
That's-
Yep.
so that's the second feature that I did. That was 2000. We shot it back in 14, 15. It came out in 17. So that was our second feature film, and that we just got some awards for that. I will say.
Did you?
Yeah, we just got. I got a. I'm the most modest person you will meet, so I actually
Oh, I know
to
that.
even bring that up is kind of I die a little bit inside.
Why not? It's something you're very passionate about. Why not bring it up?
But okay, then I got a award in excellence for writing. So I got the Screenplay One award.
Oh, good,
from
man.
a group called Indie Fest, which is kind of a worldwide thing, which is a lot of fun. And our two lead actors got an award for their work in it, and then the film itself got an award. So we picked up 4 awards just last month, a couple weeks ago, actually.
All through COVID, so it couldn't be a gathering.
Right. Yeah. No, this is everything's online now, which is good for festivals, I guess, in some regard. But this is one of those things. It's not. It's not you have to wait a whole year for a fest. They're actually doing these, I believe, quarterly.
Oh, okay.
So it's like for the summer of this year, everybody around the world send us all your stuff, and so we will judge them not based on a festival and people in the audience and all that, but it's based on your peers that watch it. So if you submit for Best Actor, then actors around the world are going to watch it, and they'll say whether this actor deserves something or not. So you can get like this award. It's like a gold, silver, bronze kind of you showed up, and then nothing. So it's kind of one of those things that you're after a higher award because you had people in the industry paying attention to that. Like the writing side, I got the high award for that. But so writers were the ones watching the movie and saying, how do we feel about the way this was written?
Okay.
So you don't have actors judging the writing part. So it's judged by the peers in your industry, and so it's one of those type of awards things. And they do it, the summer and the fall and the winter and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Called
But
Indie Fest.
now, before this year, was that done something that was more done in a theater, like everybody watching, or is this is how it's been for years now?
Festivals that traditionally, so when we did the feed back in 2010, it hit the festival circuit in 2011, and it went to a lot. We paid a lot of money. Went to a lot of festivals. It's fucking expensive to get yourself out there. To even like you're hoping to get an award, so maybe you'll sell the movie later. So you're dropping $50 for this fest, or $75 for this, or $100 over here. So
yeah, it's going to add up quick.
it's going to add up quickly, but unless you start getting, those laurels that everybody's looking for, the leaf things that, and luckily the feed hit a lot of. I mean, we've sent to a lot of festivals and it won a lot of festivals.
Yeah.
So that was really great for that film, and we worked a deal with a distributor in Oklahoma, no relation to the place that I was working at before. It just happened to be in the same state. And they took it and they started to market it, and it just died out there in their arms, and they didn't respond to phone calls. So basically, they had the rights to do everything with it. We couldn't even sell it on our own. It was the distributor side of that. I mean, for music, it's going to be a lot of the same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But for film, if you find a distributor, which is all you really want, you hope they're going to do what they're supposed to do, and if they don't, you're just shit out of luck.
Yeah.
So that's how that one kind of sadly just floundered out there. But what was funny is every now and again I'd walk into like an FYE in a mall or something,
Yeah.
and I'd find the feed in there. It's like, oh shit, that's our movie. They're still selling us in here. I didn't get any payment for this. No check came my way, and now it's in your store. So yeah, that was a big learning thing for that. But The Lost Within, we had made it. Came at a difficult time in the lives of people with the production, so it didn't get all the attention it needed to when we finally released it. But it played like downtown at the Campus Theater, and it's gone a couple different places and played. And it's just been very recently that it's like, well, I should send this out to some festivals, because the shelf life that you can send something out is pretty limited. So a lot of festivals, like, your movie has to be 2018 and later, or 2019 and later. So this was released in 17, so we can only do festivals that are like 17 and later, 16 later, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, but you have a time limit because...
Right, yeah, they don't want something that's 10 years old.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get out there.
And essentially, you could remake it to take that script and... Like artists do remix. You know as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a musician yourself. We'll get to that. We got plenty to talk about, but they say... That's why we don't wear a watch.
Right.
I don't know.
It's like Vegas.
Yeah.
There's no clock in here.
I had one up there, but I threw it away. So we got tired of looking at. I forgot where it was. But essentially, you could the script, like a script that you wrote, like let's say 10 years ago, and you know it was good then, and then you've done this, and it's like, and you look back on it 5 years later, it's like, this thing's terrible. Right. Then you look back on it now, give it another 5 years on top of that, another 10 years on top of that. You look back and go, wow, that's really a great idea what I did there. But it's like, okay, here I messed up here, and here. I can make this better, and then you do that rewrite, and then all of a sudden it's even better than it was then. You could.
Yeah.
Is that something that normally happens?
It definitely happens, and I know it's the same way with writing a song or anything else. Is you write something, you put it in a drawer, but a lot of people will do that intentionally. They write a screenplay or a 10-page treatment, an idea for a story. They'll write it out, feel really great about it, and they'll put it in a drawer and say, I'm not looking at you for at least 6 months or a year or whatever. And then when they pull it back out, and the way life has changed, they see things differently. We've evolved emotionally and everything else. They'll read it again. It's like, what a great idea, and then they'll go back and start working on it. They've written other things in the meantime, but I know very few people that are like, they have an idea, they go down in the morning, they start writing it. By midday, they're like, nailed it, it's done, it's perfect. And it's like, maybe not. You might want to. You're probably still in that same kind of semi-hungover state you were. Maybe it's not so great. I mean, you should probably hold on that for a little bit. Count to 10 and then reread it. It's the same thing with scripts. I've written things before, and what sucks about it, and I'm sure music-wise people are going to know this same thing too, is I've written things. One I've written, it wasn't a full 90-page script, but it was probably 40 pages of some fleshed out scenes, some kind of going really quickly through it, kind of detailing stuff out. So the whole thing was written from an idea I'd loved the thought of, and it's like, I really should do something with this, but no money and no resources. You can't really get it off the ground. And 2 years later, the exact same thing came out from somebody else. So it's like, I can't even do anything with this. It's like, it's so close to somebody that made it afterwards. I didn't share this. I don't know them. They don't know me. But this is way too close. And now it's
just the same wavelength, same time of life. It was, whether you believe in God, whatever. It's just something in that
divine intervention, of course.
Some wavelength that y'all connected on. Just, well, you know how life goes. I mean, we all kind of grow and change at the same rate. I mean, there's got to be somebody out there who has the same mindset as we do,
Yeah.
on that same level, going the same way. There's
Right.
7 billion people on the planet. It's not to say we couldn't have a wavelength connect right there
Right.
somewhere.
They say there's nothing new under the sun, you know, and there's only 12 notes on a, you know,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a scale. You can only do so much with that, but it just kills you when you know. It's like, I'll tell you a real quick story here.
Oh, go ahead.
With, so when the feed came out in 2011, again, did a really great, the festivals, horror film festivals. We were running around all over the country, mainly around this area, but we traveled a little bit for it. Picked up a lot of great things for it. And then a year later, another group had done the exact same idea. And ours was a very original idea, and no one had ever done it before. I will say that. And that was, and no one's going to believe this now because we're so many years later, but we had the original Paranormal Investigation gone wrong because
Okay.
Ghost Hunters was on, you know, like things were getting fired up on the air. Zach Baggins was running around, and they're all like, "Oh, what was that sound?" You know, these
Yeah, that
were
was
just
back in
hitting on
what-
TV.
Yeah, like late or early 2000s, late 1990s.
No, it was post
it-
that. It was later towards their stuff came on around 7, 8, 9, 2007, 8, 9.
Yes,
Stuff like
okay.
That. But
Yep.
Sci-Fi Channel and all that, they were really
Yeah.
starting to hit these. So these were just now coming on the air, and it wasn't very long that they had been on. And I was been watching these things. It's like guilty pleasure. It's like, you know, it's like, why aren't they finding anything? Like, what if they did? And it's like, what if they did? What if they did? What if it's like something really?
Right.
What if they went to a real place? Because you keep saying they're real, but I want to see them die. But they're never going to kill them on camera. How is this going to work? It's like if they did a live show, because they do like our Halloween special live show, you know, from Pennhurst, or you know, from this is such an asylum.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe they'll die on Halloween. It's like they're not. It's not
Nope.
going to happen. But that kind of gave me the idea behind the feed. It's like, I want to see them, like, this is our show, this is what we do, but somebody just died. Yeah, and we're live. What do we do? How do we get out of this? It's like we got.
That would be, yeah, it's kind of like Blair Witch Project meets reality.
Right,
That's like-
exactly. So we kind of got into the reality shade, especially with like Blair Witch and things like that. And there was another one based out of the New Jersey. The whatever creature that's up there, that predated Blair Witch. So it's been done before, like the people hunting, and it didn't go right for them. But to me, it's like, I want to do a TV show that's live because that's their anniversary special. And we made commercials for it. So actually, you know, it would cut away. It's like, oh, we'll be right back. And it fades out. You've got the show kind of identifier. And then we made like the local pizza place commercial. And we had an attorney, you know, saying, oh, come, let me be your attorney. So we actually went to commercials. Then we went back to the show. And so that's the format behind it. It's like, I wanted to make this look like a live TV show. From opening to introduction to the tech aspects, and here's the different recorders that we have. So they kind of talk through the whole thing. So very, you know, reality based until it got to the end when shit really started to hit the fan. And they would try and go to commercial, and they couldn't go to it. Like, it kept coming back to them. You know, it's like, we're supposed to be in commercial right now. What happened? So the whole thing got kind of, and it was like, wow, let's go ahead and so we made this movie. Let me wrap this around. So we made the feed. I loved it. It was a great experience. We shot it over the summer of 2009. No, we shot it in the summer of 2010, and then premiered it Halloween at the Campus Theater. So we had a very tight turnaround on that. We shot over 6 weekends. We had to wait for the Campus Theater to close down at night.
Right.
And it's like, okay, last person out. Now we all go in and like do our thing and now it's daylight, and let's go home and sleep. So we did that on weekends over about 6 weeks. So once that had come out and done the festival circuit, another film, well, I'm not even going to mention the name of it, but another group made a thing that was exactly the same thing. The paranormal show gone wrong, but they had money behind them. So they went out and they got a bigger push with the festivals.
Right.
And then people like a year later talking about the two movies simultaneously. Like, oh, the feed's trying to be like this other movie. It's like, no, fuck that other movie. We were the first ones to do it. They copied us.
Yeah.
Sons of bitches. If I get my hands on you.
Yeah. Like I said, you guys had no idea about each other. There's no way you could have known what each
they
other
totally
was.
copied us. We knew that.
Oh, was that deal?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
So
Yeah,
ours had been out when they started like getting into production on theirs.
Oh, so essentially they took your idea and added
yeah.
more production to it.
They got, but that's fine. You know, what they said about flattery and whatever else.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
What's that? I can't think of it right
I can't either. But yeah, there's a saying.
Imitation is the best form of
Imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
so
the one.
so I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. People deal with that all the time. I'm just very proud of the fact that we had done it first.
Somebody who's not happy.
Is there somebody else here?
Oh, Kitty's here. Okay.
Oh,
I'll
Katie,
take-
you need to pause your thing.
Yeah, let's pause it. We'll come back. We got, like you said, the correlation between whether it be, like I can't speak on art because I'm not up on that, but art between music and filmmaking. Like you said, it's all in who you know, and like we were discussing, the creature feature thing. Like you were saying about the early years of it, there was very much a style that was there through that decade, and we were discussing that it changed. And then the 80s came, and we had all these different styles of. Help me out with the horror end of it, because like I said, that's not my area of expertise. But with the 80s, it changed again.
Slasher, yeah.
And then you went to the 90s, and there was another style. Like we got to the Rob Zombie wasn't involved with that till to the 2000s. But you had the 90s. Who was doing that?
Well, the 80s were kind of the dawn of the slasher film when you had Friday the 13th and My Bloody Valentine, and you had all these things through the 80s. Huge market. They realized that people wanted extreme violence, accessible, teenage-driven, Stalker in the Woods, Halloween, which was predated. I mean, it was 1979, but that kind of led into the whole killer in the woods or killer in the house or killer, don't answer the phone kind of thing. And 90s was more. I mean, it still had a lot to do with it. I Know What You Did Last Summer kind of things. Storylines where you kind of went with that, or Final Destination kind of went. So you still had like teens in peril, but it wasn't just about cutting their throats, or they're screwing in the cabin and you stab them with a pitchfork. That kind of phased out. You got into a little bit more of the what are people really dealing with? It's death in general, and let's get a little more spooky, a little more atmospheric with it versus just a guy in a mask. Right. So that was what that kind of took us in the 90s and 2000s, and now they've gone more gothic, straight up. Like, what can we do just to fuck with people?
Right.
Hereditary and Midsummer and movies like that are like where we are today. It's like, how do we mess with them emotionally?
Right. And
we want them to cry, not over sadness, but just out of like.
Do you think too, like today with CGI? I mean, that's become a very big part of filmmaking. Did they really capture that with something on the horror end?
Well, a lot of being from a more like getting into the special effects when I was younger, CGI that was seen as kind of the dawn of the end of the in-camera effects. So we always appreciated directors that wanted to do real creatures on camera. Like, what can we get past the guy in the rubber suit? How do we make it more? An Alien came out, with the xenomorph kind of the head is like this and the talons and. So how can we step that up? Pumpkinhead, things like that. Like it's the next level of guy in a rubber suit.
Yeah.
And we all wanted to stick with that. Then you started introducing, CG monsters and things. And even today, even like a lot of the Marvel movies, which I still love, but when it goes to like a CG scene, it's like, this is not believable. I just watched a clip from Black Panther. A famous, he's on a car and it's about to crash and he jumps off one thing, does a flip in the air, lands on the other one, that car crashed one. Anybody can tell this is 100% CG. There's nothing real about the scene at all. And it's a popcorn movie, though. We still love it, but for people that like to do practical effects and all that, they're like, right. I can't believe that that's what we've been reduced to. Some guy at a keyboard designing out the emotion to a scene.
Right.
Because it's, cleaner or easier or something else versus stunt people and real, things on people's faces. Mm-hmm. Don't manipulate somebody's face because they got a screwed up tooth. Yeah. Either leave the screwed up tooth or before they leave the makeup trailer, fix that and let them go on and do it. Don't do it after the fact because we see that people make jokes about that.
I honestly didn't think about that. Do you think that's good? Would it get to that point to where you can combine both worlds and make an even stunt or an even shoot for that matter?
There's the best example for that to me was probably Jurassic Park, where you had real dinosaurs interacting with people on sets, but a great CG at the same time. So
Yeah.
it still holds up today as being some of the best
It
work that's
does.
been
And
done.
like you said, you were saying about, I can't tell the difference in that one. Even today, even they've updated to HD,
Right.
to whatever pixelation we have today. It still holds true. How in the world did they do that? That's what I want to know.
Spielberg. When again, when you have the money and you have the vision behind it, and you say, "Look, we cannot do just CG dinosaurs and everything." You know, when Sam Neill and Laura Dern they find the big Triceratops in the field. You know, that was Stan Winston Studios made this big ass out of clay and foam. I mean, they molded this thing that they have to touch and interact with. You know, but some people today will be like, "No, we'll just put it in post." Just there'll be some green dots in there, or we'll have a guy in a green suit laying on the ground. Just go pet him, like the Planet of the Apes movies that are out now. Andy Serkis on the ground. It's like, just do that and we'll make him a monkey later. But people back then were like, no, we have to have this real thing, the weight of it, the breathing. Figure that out. Let's put the money into making this thing. The big T-Rex head that would come through the car.
Yeah.
That was, animatronic, but if people today would do that all CG, it's like, just pretend there's something up there and we'll add it later. But they knew back then that you need to have the combination of both. You can't build dinosaurs that walk around in the field. Those will be CG, but when it actually needs to be in the same frame with somebody and touching them, make it a puppet. You've got to make a big thing. You've got to, and people are getting away from that now. It sucks. I hate CG.
I would agree with that.
fight
And
scenes.
I've heard different things off the internet like that. And like I said, you would know more than I do. It's got to affect the actor trying to play this scene, because you can tell, like in Jurassic Park, there's true fear in their eyes when they're doing that. It's like, there's something in front of me trying to kill me. That's why it still gets us today. Like Jaws was for earlier on. I mean, that one still. I mean that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was. How many times did that thing break down during the shoot? I mean,
Right, Bruce.
They get 8 scenes through the entire 90-minute or whatever it was movie. You see the shark 8 times, but they figured out how to put it in there, and they still make it look real to this day. It's like you still watch it, but it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I still don't want to go in the ocean.
Granted, there's some films, Lord of the Rings, things like that, for example, where you need CG, like the 20,000 people on the battlefield.
Yes.
But they did it so well, So when Peter Jackson was making that, and with Weta Workshop and all that, so they would have the orcs and makeup, and they'd have the real things there, but you needed to add in. You had so many layers of people in a scene, but you needed 10,000 behind them. So yeah, you do it all green screen, and you have to build that in later. But they were very mindful of the fact that do what you can practically on camera. Don't rely on CG. When it works as part of the story, you have this big overhead shot, and the dragons flying over here, Game of Thrones kind of thing. You have to do some of those things, but when you do it just because Black Panther is riding on top of a car and it's going to crash, he's going to flip in the air, he's going to land on this thing, or do that one knee Marvel land, like it's just so overdone. People see that now, they're like, you lost me for this movie. It's like, that means you can do anything, and we have to pretend like we believe what's happening.
Right. It's not realistic. But then again, it's still entertaining. Like, Star Wars is not real. That's not a part of our... Easy.
It was a long time ago. Galaxy.
But even still, like the newer ones, I mean, they brought it up to date. But what he did, I mean, that world he went, it's fiction, but it's still, it's believable. I mean, there's a line but maybe perception on how you look at the video, because that's not a world we live in.
Right.
Okay, we'll just accept this and we're going to go along for the ride.
That's suspension of disbelief but they, even with Star Wars, when they had the live models, they would, and the camera systems they had, and the tracking and all, like that would change the world, honestly, as far as incorporating miniatures and live action and all this kind of stuff with live things on camera. So that was I think that was part of the success, was they found that nice balancing line between, this is completely fantastical, but you're going to believe it because we have real things in front of you.
Yeah.
If Chewie was CG the whole time, we would never have had the same reaction. It's like when Jar Jar Binks showed up.
Yeah.
When they started redoing them, everybody was like, what a piece of shit this thing is.
Yeah.
And they all knew, it's like, this isn't even a guy in a suit. It's like, you've added this in. There's no personal relation. He's an idiot, number one. And it almost killed the whole franchise. I mean, people hated that guy. Maybe not everybody, but everybody I knew hated him. But because it was so intentionally a CG character dropped into a live scene, just because it's something that's got weird dog ears and a face, and he's going to talk in a Cajun accent, and it's like, there's no place for this kind of thing. Make it a different character. But I think that was part of the downfall to the franchise, unfortunately, is relying on the need of CG versus a real thing happening on screen. Back
Yeah.
older school, you know, Yoda when he was an actual puppet, that a guy Frank Oz from Muppet Days was puppeting around and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Different character versus a CG one that can do flips in the air and fighting people and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, I understand what you're going for here,
Yeah.
but it's not the same quality. There's not a texture to it anymore that you feel like you can actually touch. You
Yeah.
know what's happening. It's part. He's flying around. He's doing his thing.
Which
But
makes sense. There's you had to be connected to that character. You had to be a part of that realism.
Yeah,
You-
it's for a new audience though. I think little kids were loving the shit out of that. But
It is.
people that kind of grew up with the older school stuff were like, you could have done that differently. It's unbelievable at this point. It's not even
Yeah.
the realm, and you can see it's not even a real character.
That's part of it too. But I think as time goes on, maybe
I'm just
like
bitching about everything now.
no, that's fine. But you do. I'll bring you back around to that. But I think over time, like if the generations get together and say, hey, this is what we like, exactly what you just said. This doesn't feel real to us. This feels real to them because they've been up through, like the younger generation have been up through this. If you find the line and make everything come together, like you said, Jurassic Park, there's something real there. They combine that with the new technology and everything feels right. That's going to create a whole new film. And like, did you see The Irishman? You see what they did to CGI on that?
The Irishman. Oh no, I saw part of it. I didn't see the whole thing.
I'll tell you to go home and watch it because it's great story writing, which is all based off of true story.
Right. It's like 3 hours plus long.
It
4
is,
hours long.
but I
think I
that's-
made it to an hour, and I was like, I got something else I got to do.
Really?
I'll get back to it
I,
because I like the actor. I mean, I like the gangster stuff, but
yeah, that was my thing because I love Goodfellas, and I saw and it's Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, and Al Pacino. I was like, I'm not. When they came on screen and then they look younger, I'm like, and I'm looking at this is the part I want to talk to you about. They did the CGI for them to look younger because they were going to get older through the story.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at it, and I could tell through the pixelation. They're like, "Oh, this is all CGI." I was like, "If they get rid of that pixelation, this would be perfect." They had it. Like the younger them look great, but you could in those TV screens, I could see it. I could see the pixelation. Like, oh, they were so close. And as time went on, towards the end of the movie, they did the timeline perfectly for their age, all the way down to when that story was supposed to end and what happened. And they had another problem too with them being able to stand up correctly. Like the director, I forget his name. I'm sorry. Scorsese, thank you. Yeah, he's like, you got to get up fast. He says, you're 50 years old. You got to get up this fast. He goes,
Right.
61. And so he says, I'll try again. But it's like they were so close with that movie. I love the storyline. It was great. It flowed so well, in my opinion. But like you said, the CGI, you could tell my eyes could see it with that TV. There was pixelation
And
there.
it takes you out of the story then because
It
you recognize
does.
it's like he looks way too. I mean, he looks good, or maybe they're doing a really great job. It's like, oh, look how young he looks, but immediately you're not listening to dialogue because you're thinking about, oh, look how wonder how they did that. Is that CG or were they back in the day? They would have elastic bands and tape, and they would actually pull people's faces and their necks and their forehead back and put a wig on them. It's like now you're 20 years younger. But
Exactly.
it's like, we just erase everything and do it all in post.
Yeah.
But people are too mindful of that now. And if you're out of the scene mentally for 30 seconds because you're looking at something, I wonder how they did it like that. You've lost the story. I mean, you've disassociated from the storyline, which I know it's not their intent, but it's just the way that it is.
Yeah, you don't feel
They
that
need to be
because
aware of that. It's so easy to get a younger actor and then age them with prosthetics,
Yes.
add to them, make them older, versus take somebody really old and make them young, and not have people say, "Wow, look how good they look." And it's like, I think they just talked about a heist, but I'm not really paying attention because I'm looking at their mouth right now.
That's part of it too, but answer me this too. Like I said, even if they would have had, like, their acting was on point, but I could tell their their dialogue, them talking to you as they were as a young person. I didn't hear that. It's like I know Al and all these actors have grown over the years. They're more mature.
Al Pacino.
And, yeah. Oh, any one of them that was in that movie, when they played the young part, it's like I could still their acting wasn't as if they were young. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Even though that, like I said, the pixelation offended me a little bit, but the acting is like this is a mature actor acting a young part.
Right.
It's like this dude is far more. He's over here. I already know where he's going to be. It's like the young Al Pacino or the young Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. I know them guys from the younger movies. They didn't act like this. They were much more cocky. They were much more this.
Right.
And then that part didn't play through. But it was still very interesting to watch. Like I said, this is just from my point of view. You could,
I'll revisit it. I'll get back to it. 'Cause I've heard good things, obviously, about it. I do like Scorsese's work, and the actors, the ensemble is really great. But it just lost me over something. And I was like, I don't have that much time right now.
yeah, it's probably the
I'll get
CG
back
like
to
it was for me. That was the
That was
only
pre-COVID days, though. Now I've got more time.
This is true. But like I said, the one thing that I'm sure you'll notice too, as well as that was the first thing I noticed, was just that pixelation. It's like that was really good, but you just didn't cross over that mark to make it. Like you said, you should have taped skin back and then use CGI. Or maybe there's something. Like I said, I'm not in any way, shape, or form an expert. I just love filmmaking. I love the process,
yeah.
the whole thing. It's fascinating to me. But like you said, and then actors better than I do, and that's one thing I've always been curious about. I mean, they're the same as musicians, obviously, and comedians too. I mean, you have a growth through life. There's a difference between Al Pacino young when he was in Scarface and what he just did in The Irishman. There's a difference between what Aerosmith did in the early days compared to what they've done from. Well, they haven't done much lately. They can go back. You can go back to 2005, 2001, when they were working with new songwriters and doing this and that. There's a growth there. Am I right with that? With acting and anything in general with that.
Just appearance-wise, or just like maturity-wise?
Just personality-wise and voice, and voice changes. But there's a growth inside the music or the art of acting, or the growth of, like I said, it took you years to get to these. This is not something you did when you were 18 years old.
No, it's a different. Yeah, I was doing different kinds of stuff when I was younger. So to me, with art or music or anything else or film, I can relate to that because things I would have done 20 years ago or 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, it was fine for the time. And then you think, what else can I be doing? Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't even have dawned on me to do some things that I'm doing today that long ago because it just didn't cross. I was doing other things. It's right. The way we evolve as people and our personalities and our different tastes. And, it's that thing where they say every 7 years your body does a changeover and you can lose taste for things or become allergic to some things, and it's a progression. Like you shed a way that your body is and it becomes something different every 7 years. I think you're in medicine. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard this.
But yeah, you're right. There's an increase.
You develop things and
women are they're at least a few years ahead of us. So if not 10.
So I think that the evolution of the arts is really important. Like you don't want to get stuck doing the same thing unless you find a niche market and this is what you do, and everybody expects that out of you. But you're doing very well. You're Jackson Pollock. You're string art and dripping and things. But people are going to buy your stuff all the time. Don't go and start doing portraits. I mean, why would you keep doing what you're known for, what people love, what you're really good at? But if you've written an album, you're like, that was a concept album, or it was just a collection of things, or kind of a best of in my mind. We have this thing done. Album number 2, you're not going to copy that. You're going to do a variation. Don't go from rock to country. Don't go so severe and shock the system because people, they love you for that. Don't go way over here. Don't go too far over here. Mm-hmm. Eric Val plays classical guitar works based on Gregorian chants. They're like, oh, dude, I liked your other stuff. Like, what? This is fine, but we know you as being this. So I think you can have shades of new things, but over years you're going to progress from things you did when you were 17 to 27 to 50 to 70 to anything else. We should all be doing that. But also, if you hit something, Aerosmith you were mentioning, they've evolved, but they've had a consistent sound. I mean, there's a new song comes on, you hear it already.
They have
whether it's Tyler singing or something else. So I know, I know this band.
Yeah.
New song, but I recognize this band. So they have their thing they want to stay within. If they went too far over here,
which makes sense.
It wouldn't be good for them. That's why people do solo albums. It's like, go experiment. Go over there and do your own thing. You'll be back. You'll go pour over there. You'll come back to the band and we'll do our own thing.
But we could bring them back around to that. It's like sometimes you just get so caught up in that formula. It's like, I got to... You know what I'm talking about. You're creative. I mean, if you did the same thing, you had this formula, and you kept doing it over the years, and you kept attaining more different ideas. But when we work with this project here, or what you were doing consistently, it's like, and you finally get to that point. It's like, I gotta do this. I gotta take a minute off and just go do this and clear my mind. If it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Now tell me, that's got to be something with a part of all of us.
It is. It definitely is. I think people should be allowed to experiment and kind of do their own thing, knowing that it might not be a success for them.
Yeah.
But doing it just because they have to get out of their system. You know, it's
Yeah.
like if Stephen King, in his heyday of
Drunk
novel,
off his
novel,
ass.
novel, 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 and he's like, I'm writing a love story, you know,
Yep.
about, set on an island, you know, about two birds and they fall in love.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you don't. People are going to reject that. It might be really good, but they want what you do. So.
Yeah.
You can change the flavor, but don't shift so abruptly and hope people are going to love it, because they won't. Do
Yeah,
it because you
it's-
have to get it out there. Just know, come back and write something scary again.
And like you said about this, you brought that up. Stephen King, he changed his name for like 3 different novels that he did because they were so far on the other side of what he did.
Yeah.
I think The Green Mile was a part of that, but I know there's 2 other ones that were something that he wrote under an alias because of that, and people found it out way later. Like I said, it's been written on it, but like I said, it was against what his normal thing was, and he had these ideas, and he just wrote under an alias, talked to his publisher, this and that, like I said, you know, the progression, and released it, and it became very, very successful. And the name behind it meant nothing. They were praising this guy that had no face.
Right. And good for him.
Yeah,
I like him very much. I know his
different
his
very
son.
much.
When his son was writing and publishing, he was out under a different name. He wasn't resting on, I'm the son of Stephen King.
Which is a good idea.
I forget what his name was, but Joe something. I should know this. But he wanted, like, I want to be a writer. I don't want to be associated with my old band or my old, you know, films or my dad or anything. I'm going to come out and break out on my own. And he was pretty successful at doing it, obviously. So you got to find your voice, obviously, with anything.
Yeah.
But
But like you're saying, you have to get those. There's certain ideas. It's like, I got to take some time off and just do this,
Right,
and then
change it up.
we'll come back. Which I guarantee, if somebody came to you and said, hey, "We'll give you $1 million, or probably more than that, probably, let's say $10 million budget. Here's CG. Pick the script you like." I guarantee you do something that would be so freaking out there.
I
But
would
if you
love
did it
Do you
right,
know somebody that's going to offer me this? Because
anybody, please do, because I'd love to see what he could do. Like I said,
I have ideas.
hypothetically, like if you had a script in your head and somebody just came to you and said, "Here's all the money you'd ever need. Take your time and do it." That would be something new, and then guaranteed when you're done, it's like either they'd love it or hate it, but everybody would look at it and go, and everybody would be influenced by it. Like the younger generation, be like, "Damn, he did that. I'm going to try something like that," and then it just built from there. You know, the greatest ideas, in my opinion, were something that didn't really get famous, but then somebody who had the right, like you said, the right connections, they took that style. It's like, I see where he's trying to go. We're going to take that a step further, and they had better connections than what you and I do or anybody else. And then it just, from there to the top, and like I said, the industry is always evolving. Technology is always evolving. It's
Right. And ideas, I mean, are really what we go by. I mean, whether you're in art or film or music or anything else, it's, you know, you want to wake up one day and say, I have an idea for something, and I have to paint it out, or I've got to strum it out, or I've got to film it out, whatever the process is. You know, we're all waiting for that. I just had an idea, and people might love it, people might hate it, but it's cathartic for us. We have to get out. I have to do that thing. I've got to film that thing or write that thing or whatever it is.
Yes.
Because if I don't, it's an injustice to myself to just not pursue that. And I will hate myself a year from now. It's like, you should have done that thing. Why didn't you do that thing? It wasn't going to be a great hardship. You should have just done that thing. But too many of us, ourselves included, I'm sure, we're like, maybe later I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
But we're not pushing ourselves to stay creative and to not be afraid to do other things. Whether
not
that's
capture that
fail
lightning in
or
a bottle
not.
at that moment.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing of it. And like you said, you never, like, you know, I've always said, when we're dead and done, there's a good chance that anything most of us done will, whether it's 50 years from now, 100 years, we're going to be forgotten at some point. But while we're here, you know what I mean? There might be that. I guarantee there's the big producers. They had their influences. It might be that he was watching some independent film, and this guy just did something that blew his mind, and he was inspired. Mm-hmm. So it might be something that, we might do something in our lifetimes that just inspires this one person that's going to create something that's far beyond what we're going to see later on. We're going to be long gone. This guy's seen it, and he takes it to another level. Mm-hmm. This is kind of how it works. I mean, there's so many artists we forgot about over the years that have definitely influenced the major artists that we all know and love that have become headlines. I mean, without Mudhoney, wouldn't have Nirvana. Without, let's go back to the line here. Bands that we don't really know about that have influenced them to be what they are today. Like when Metallica gives off Danzig and stuff like that, and it's like, who the hell's Danzig? It's like, oh, do you really don't? It's like, there's always certain people, but they push them to where they're at. And I'm sure you've had filmmakers that were, indie or something below, or you've seen something like, damn, that's a really great idea. So,
right.
And yeah. I'll take that influence, and you build it onto your repertoire, and you'll build yours, and then somebody's going to see that, and it's like, oh shit, and then they have this perfect store of ideas, and then it's something that's far beyond what anybody's ever seen again.
Right.
So either way, we all play a contribution at some point.
We do. And I was actually just telling the story the other night. But one of the things I used to do when I was kind of just getting into the film side of things when I was younger, the job that I had at the time, I was a land surveyor. So I was out, doing stuff in the field, and it was all on the road. It was great fun. Did that for a few years. But when it would rain, or we were shut down for the day, we couldn't go out and do stuff. They'd say, "Okay, go home." And I lived almost right across the street from the office, so go back to my apartment. But before I would go there, I'd go right down to the video store and I'd rent 2 movies, at least 2, but generally 2. Uh-huh. A really good one, like well-known accolades, awards, all this stuff, and then a really super shitty one. Yeah. And I'd take them both home and I'd watch them both. And I would try and figure out, okay, why did this one turn out so well? Mm-hmm. And why was this one so shitty? Yeah. And was it the acting? Was it the direction, the lighting, the sound? Yep. What was it that made this one where it is here, low budget or not? And why was this one so good? Mm-hmm. And I would do a kind of a study at home. And I love both of them for different reasons, but I love them both equally because it taught me, okay, yeah, you watch Miller's Crossing or something. It's like, oh yeah, the great film, great acting, story, all this stuff is really brilliant. But the Video Dead or something over here, low budget, schlocky 80s, a lot of fog in the room and strobe lights. And okay, what killed that? And what made this one so good? And so I would watch both with the critical eye of and to me, it's like, regardless of what we do today, whether it's film or art or music or anything else, you bring in influences of like, that could be a shitty band, but they have a good hook with that song. They nailed something over here. Yes. And I'm going to remember that because I'm going to borrow the idea behind that. I'm going to bring it into something that I'm doing over here. Mm-hmm. And this band, Jimmy Page, it's like, wow, he was really great at this thing over here. And I like the sound or the sound of that strat on that song from this band over here. That combined with that, so you're actually creating something new based on that different and good. Yeah. Like bring it all together. I mean, like we don't borrow enough ideas anymore. I mean, we're trying to be so uber creative with like, how can I change the world? It's like when you change the world little bits at a time. Yeah. Take things, but don't just take all the best stuff. Yeah. Don't just say, like you mentioned, Nirvana. It's like their whole that Seattle sound. I'm going to take all that stuff. I'm making a band sound just like Nirvana. It's like no one's going to care about you. Yeah, because it's already been done. Take that before. Pre-grungy kind of '90s sound, but combine it with salsa music. I mean, you never know. Like bring things in that maybe haven't been done before, but don't just take the best of this or the best of it. Grab things from all over the place. That's how you reinvent. You bring up a very good point on that. Actually, Phil salsa Nirvana. Salsa. Hey, you never know. There might be a hook right in there. But Phil from Pantera, I mean, he's said essentially the same thing. He said it much shorter words. He goes, you're listening to 3 bands. He goes, listen to 50. He says, listen to all of them while you're writing. He says, when you're young, he says, listen to as much as you can. But he has a good point. When the younger we are, the more impressionable we are. He says, listen to everything you can. He says, take everything and just enjoy it. He says, take it all in. Yeah. And he says, after you get
he says, keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. He says, and then go from there. He says, once you're done listening to all that, he says, go about your business. He says, keep writing. Which makes sense. I mean, you want to take as many influences as you can. You don't want to sound like just this one band or this one.
Right.
You want to take as much influence from all of them as you can, and like you said, in filmmaking, I'm sure would be the same principles. You would take as much information from all of them as you can.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like it's almost like an osmosis that where you just start leaching in different parts of different things. If you have enough of a spread in front of you and you're listening to all these different kinds of bands, just because you're going to start collecting things in a much bigger tray of like, I've got options here now.
Yeah.
I've got the best of a drum sound or the best of a bass or keys or organ. Someone's playing a Hammond on this thing or a Leslie cabinet. I haven't heard that in forever, but that'd be really tight in this rap song. Who does that? There's an idea for you. Old Leslie cabinet in a rap song.
Then again, you could put Dr. Dre. I think pulled that one off in a couple of them.
Oh,
it might be questionable.
Is there anything he doesn't do? But I mean, you have to do that because if you just listen to the same kind of music, like I grew up on rap and I'm just listening to rap artists, like you can do that, but don't expect yourself to be noticed.
Yeah.
You're going to pull out. You might have a really good hook or a really good style to you. You can freeform like the best of them, but freestyle like the best of them, but to have an influence that no one's considered, it's people that are doing sampling now. It's like, wow, that something from Logan's Run, some movie back in the 70s, they took a bit of a soundtrack for that, dropped into a rap song. It's the biggest hit now because it's like they're always thinking about something different besides what their friends are doing or what the influences in that genre are doing, like spread it out over everything.
Exactly. Bring in all the influences you've heard. Bring it all into your tape.
You got to, yeah.
It's true, and like you said, you and Phil, that was the best advice I ever heard because I'm always working with new artists. I'm sure you are too. But how does it work? I never understood the artist relationship, the actor compared to the co-producer, the filmmaker. I mean, how do they get chosen? I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, they're probably far more than writers, and that's probably the most common thing you have out there in the film industry. Yes.
Yeah. Actors are actors are aplenty. Good actors are fewer to find. For me, when I'm doing casting for something, and you mentioned comedians, I've actually cast comedians before over theater actors because comedians have no delivery. They know when to pause. They know how to read the room. They know how to the cadence of their delivery can usually lend itself to really good acting. I found they're used to having the attention on them, so they're not camera shy. I would choose somebody that's been in stand-up for a few years over someone that's done theater for 10 years, especially like local theater, because local theater, they have to talk like this. Their cheap seats are important to them. They're like, they got to hear me back there, or else I'm not doing my job.
And that messes with
in film, it's like you've just killed the whole scene. Like you're not even speaking like a real person now. You're talking like this, Eric.
Yeah.
What I want to say about this is because you've got to project, and they're trained that way to unlearn all that. It's great hardship.
That's a good point. I'd never even thought of that. But listen, I've never been to one of those shows. I've never been to. I want to. I got to do that because that's the other. I respect it, but it's not something that I know a lot about. But
what show? What kind of show?
Arts and theater or Broadway and that type of area. A lot of people don't know that. I respect it because a lot of times the Broadway end, you got to act and sing, and that is not an easy feat for any person on this earth because breath control,
10 times
being a singer,
kind of
you got to be and you got to act. I mean, that's a split mind. I respect that. But like I said, I've watched it. It's not my thing, but I would never say bad about it because that is a respect you need. Because if you can do that and do it well, my God, you got a hell of a mind.
Yeah.
But like you said, they're trying to project and get their voice out,
and
not being on camera
works. But the opposite way, it actually works out well. If you're a film actor, you can do theater. You can translate to theater very easily because you know how to keep things subtle in film. But you just know, but they need to hear me back there, so you have to bring it that much more for theater.
Okay.
But you understand eye lines in film. There's things you know, but you know how to play it quiet. And all a director has to say in theater is like, you got to make it bigger. You got to bring in more, and it's like, okay, I can adapt as an actor and I can make it bigger. And film actors translate to theater actors much easier than theater going to film. So to me, if I'm casting, and I've cast people that haven't done anything before, because their eyes, or something about their eyes. So to me, that's the most important in putting somebody on screen. If they have nervous eyes, I can't use them. They can be a great actor. They can be, you know, I'm this character, now I'm this character. They send their headshot, and they got the tennis racket in this still, and they've got the doctor's thing on this.
Yeah.
So they've got, I can play all these roles. It's like Tobias in Arrested Development. Have you ever seen that? It's like the headshots.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you're doing.
So, but if they have the same look in their eyes for all of them, or if either nervous eyes or the same kind of look, even though they have a beard in this one, they've got a thing. They've lost me already as an actor. I don't go further with them. They send in their pictures and stuff. It's like your face is different. You're smiling, you're frowning, you're doing whatever, but your eyes are locked in the same.
Yeah.
I can't use you. So very few people actually can have a thing about them that their eyes read the whole story, and those are the actors you look for. Because very few people want to be actors. They don't understand that it's right here. Because people look at you on the screen, they're looking at your eyes. Sure, they can look at your face.
Yeah.
You know, they've had actually this tracking software they've had around for years, where people have worn these goggles in theaters. They've done tests, and it actually like laser pinpoints while they're watching a film what they're looking at. The door over here, the person's face, the dog. So it actually scales around what your eyes are seeing on the screen. But most of the time, they're looking at the eyes of the person on camera.
Okay.
Especially close-ups and everything. Or if there's dialogue, you're looking at the eyes like you would in any conversation with somebody. You know, I'm not looking at your chest while I'm talking to you, because that's weird. So when someone's on
It's
screen,
right here.
so if they have weird eyes or the emotion isn't there, they're not going to be good actors.
That's a good point. You're right. You can see fear in an actor's eyes. You can see pain. You can see
Good actors, the emotion is
insecurity. You
carried.
see everything.
Two eyeballs. How do you do that? I mean, you squint, you make them bigger. There's just something magical about good actors. You see their eyes. It's like, oh my God, they've told me the whole story. They don't have to say anything, but just something they have with their eyes through a whole scene can sell it. And there's a good actor. You remember them.
You got a
Very
very
rare.
good point there. I now thinking back on that, like the independent films I've seen, and the one, like their eyes, they really do. There's a saying that your eyes reflect the soul.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, there's more. There's many other sayings besides that. You go deep into those, but it is. I mean, yeah, like you said, there's a reflection when you see those eyes, no matter what color. I mean, they are dilated correctly. I mean, they're in that scene with that emotion.
So that's what I go by when I'm looking at actors. I'm looking at their eyes 100%.
Which makes sense. I mean, yeah. I mean, they're already trained, whether it be, like you said, the comedians, they're used to being, they put in their work. I mean, they've been booed out of small clubs and
they got thick
rewritten.
skin.
Yeah, oh, they do, man. I respect comedy just as much as I do anything else, because them guys writing and rewriting, I mean, they're essentially their own promoters, plus the writers and the actors of their own
Right.
their own stage, you know what I mean? And they've been through hell and back. And the ones that have made it, oh my God, they've been through the ringer for 20, 30 years. And they're the only ones, like Joe Rogan, Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr. I mean, and we've lost the ones like Robin Williams. Robin Williams was just, I mean, his mind moved so fast. It was just, he just went with it.
You have
He never
exceptional
slowed
people
down.
that cross many platforms. And
Yeah.
he was one. Yeah.
And the ones that we all know and love, they have a thing about them. It's just they have an innocence and they have a funny, and they know how to turn that punchline around in their writing. But that's from years of being in the small clubs and just
They've been
writing.
beaten up a lot. Yeah. They've bounced right back up, and
Yep.
they're a different person. And they got to go again.
And then- Yeah, I'm sure you notice with actors, it's probably the same thing. If they've been through a lot of auditions.
A lot of rejection. Yeah, they can't fold. They've got to keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
But would it be the same principle? They have started here, and they took constructive criticism. Like, I got turned down for this role. It's like, oh, we didn't like it for that. And they think back, or they look at the film that they did. It's like, oh, I really messed up here. They take constructive criticism from their own acting, and they process it. Would that be accurate?
They do actually. When usually when auditions happen, you have someone come in and they do a read. You have a chance to give them adjustments. You know, they come in, it's like, okay, here's your scene. You give them what they call sides, which is just, you know, a couple of pages of the script.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here's your scene, here's your character, these 3 pages. You go home, learn that best you can, come in, we're going to audition you. So they would come in with what they think they should be doing, You know, they're an Irishman and they're, you know, big and cocky and proud. And they're like, deliver it like that. And then they're done with the thing and you're like, okay, that was nice.
Yeah.
Let's try it more like this. Your character isn't so much Irish as they are, you know, Spanish, you know.
Okay.
Sorry, you didn't know that before. So you tilt them a little bit. You give them some things like they're a little sadder, they're a little happier, they're more confident, they're less confident. And so they have to think for a second, then redo the scene, allow them to do it again. And that's generally the twice is all you really give them. And then it's like, okay, didn't really hear it, and next, and then the next person comes in.
Yeah.
So they should be given the right to kind of retool the best they can because they're coming in blind. I mean, I feel bad for actors because they do come in, I want to do this for a living or best that I can.
Okay.
It's not even fame or money at that point. They just love the craft of it. So you respect that they come in to do an audition in the first place. And what they bring is, you know, whether you're the writer or director, you already know in your head what you're looking for. It's like you're a different type than what we're looking. You know, you don't look what I'm looking for, but maybe you'll win it over. People come in and nail an audition because I didn't even see the character that way. You brought a different level to it because you are a good actor. Right. I didn't hear that with an Irish accent, but here you are. My God, it makes perfect sense. You're hired. I mean, so they can bring something different to it.
That makes sense.
Or sometimes they come in and it could be pretty good. You adjust them, they nail it. You're like, okay, you're top of the list right now.
Yeah, like you said, changing that dynamic, like it's inspires them to, as far as the writing goes. Like they're, like you said, an accent, the way they acted, the way their eyes were, it just creates a whole new dynamic for that video. And then, but then again, it's got to be hell for the writer because they may have to change the script again.
At that point. Yeah. Writer's done. He's
the poor writers, man.
Yeah, he's back to his day job.
Like I said, this is the thing. There's a lot that goes into a movie. I really respect it. Like I said, from independent up to a major producer, like, and everything in between, I truly respect it because it's, and obviously art and music, there's so many things that go into it. It's like you said, the biggest part of it is who you know and who's going to believe in you, and just that right time, that right place, and the right amount of actors. And I'm sure that, like you said, the movies that you made, or the independent films, or anything you've done to where you have that day on set where everything clicks, everybody lines up, and everything is smooth. And it's just, it's the same with the musicians. When you're in a studio, or you had that one live show, it's just like, that was it. That is the day.
Yeah.
It's like everything was perfect in my ears and everybody else's ears. Like we had that moment, and it's done, and that's the one that catches, and away we go.
Right. Well, to me, the most satisfying thing about doing anything in the arts and the kind of stuff that I do is when I get to combine both things. So if I get to do music videos, so I get to do music background that I have as kind of an influence, but the video side of things, certainly a little bit of the art stuff, if I can kind of blend some things together and create a project, that's where I'm most satisfied with stuff. Like, I'm going to come around to your video, to My Own Hell that we did.
By all means.
That's been 2 years ago? 3 years? Oh, God.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so we forget exactly when this was.
We'll say 2 for the sake of argument.
But things like that are to me are fun because you're promoting local music. You're bringing what you can to the table with it. So it's like you're marketing, and you're bringing in art that you can, and you're working with people in the community that also love the arts and music side. So to me, that's the blending of the kind of stuff that I like doing the most versus, you know, some guy in Wyoming, hey, we're going to fly you out here to direct a commercial, and then you're going to leave after that. And it's like, okay, I'm sure, why not? But it's not the same kind of a thing. We're actually doing something a little bit more community-oriented, and that could have it's a much bigger impact because you get to know the people that you're working with, and it's not just a one and done kind of a thing.
Well, it's one of those things, like you said, if you stay in an area long enough, and like I said, I've been here for 14 years by now, 13, 14 years. I'm working with you and everybody from all the musicians where I've always come out to see you guys, you know that. But it's one of those deals, like you don't have it, I don't have it. There's all the people I've had on here, and everybody that I love and trust does not have it. There's no ego between us. It's we all know it's like There's a little bit of competition there. There always is. Like, you did that. Like, all right, we're gonna try that. But that's fine.
I hate other video people. They suck. They're the
But
worst.
it's true. Well, yeah, it's
No,
like, but it's
they're
still
good
going to
ones out
inspire
there.
you to get off your ass tomorrow. And like if someone like
Yeah.
Sean or anybody else that I know and love, they get up and do an album tomorrow. Like, motherfucker, all right, I got to get up and write a new song because this dude's out doing it. But that is, we inspire each other. I mean, you got to love that.
Of course,
But at the end of
yeah.
the day, you don't ever tear each other down. It's like we're still friends here. It's like if you want to be a little competitive, by all means, like inspire each other, do it.
Right,
I
right.
I respect that part. Just don't go out and tear each other down. Like this guy sucks or this. No,
No,
don't do
there's-
that. Don't do that bullshit.
Audience is for everybody. You know, it's like
Exactly.
don't try and take away somebody else's fan to make
Yeah.
them your own. It's like let them be a fan of both.
Yeah,
Why would you
there's
even?
enough people in this
don't-
world.
Yeah, don't shit on another band. Say how bad they are. It's like no, just they're for a different audience. They're just not your
Yeah.
taste. Just say that's not my thing. I like this over here. That's totally fine. But don't say how bad these guys are over here. You're not doing them a favor. You're not doing yourself a favor. People know you're an
Exactly.
idiot at this point.
Thank you very
being
much.
mean.
That is an insecurity. It's like when that dude who's done something makes you pissed off. It's like okay, you can either use that as fuel, or you're going to use it as anger and resentment. It's like no, they're inspiring you, man. They're out there kicking. They're out there kicking ass. They're doing what they love and they're doing it right. Use that as inspiration. Don't down them for it.
No,
That's
no,
not the way
no.
to be. It's like okay, but you can be competitive. I mean, if you want to piss on each other a little bit. I mean, my friends are the dirtiest, nastiest people in the world. Hi, Bobo, too tall, and everybody, a big Rob, and everybody. Yeah, we'll get to that later. But yeah, it's like you don't ever take that seriously. Like, oh, you did this. Like, I got to try that. Plus 3 other things, like you said. We're gonna pull more in. It's like you did this. I got 3 other things that are gonna top you. We're gonna throw on top of that. I'm gonna
Right.
throw this in.
Let them inspire you, though. Let that
Exactly.
be the catalyst to get you to doing other things.
Exactly.
You know, damn, they had that. What a great sound that
Yeah.
that is that they had there. What a tight song that they just put out.
Exactly.
You know, how
So
could they
you
do that?
congratulate, like, yeah, you did that great. And I'm going to go do this. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that. But you got to recognize greatness. I mean, you got to, like,
Of
yeah, you
course.
did great on that. So you got to, like, what Sean's done, what Rich has done with what you've done, and everybody I've had on this couch, man, I respect what they do. It's like they're
Oh,
pouring
thank
their, you got to respect that. At the end of the day, you just got to respect this. They're putting their heart and soul into what they truly love. This is what they feel. Accept it. If you don't like it, who gives a shit?
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen to it. But if you like it, put that shit out there. Play it for them, man. I would. Anybody you love on this couch, if you love what they do, share the hell out of it. I mean, because they're doing what they do because they love it. And to hell with what everybody else thinks. It's
Very
that
true.
simple.
That is true.
But like I said, you got to throw a little bit of competition in there because you need that. We all have a little bit of an ego. It just depends on how big it gets.
Of course. And I know that if a venue is deciding between hiring a band to play a Saturday night thing and they got $500, and you're like, oh, pick my band over here. It's like, oh, we picked this band over there. It's like, what? They suck. Why would you hire them?
Yeah.
They play wedding music. They're
It's like-
terrible.
It's like, yeah,
They're
they're
like
playing
all
these
original.
kind
everything.
of,
So, but yeah, I mean, so there is that. Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's a money thing, or to me, that's where the competition is. So, what I have, there's people out that there's at least a dozen people in this immediate area that do video work and are really good at it.
yes. Yeah.
But I don't want them to be hired. I want people to talk to me. But they want the same thing. So it's like,
It's like, yeah, but you, like you
But
said, you got to
at the same
respect what
time-
they're doing. It's
but
like,
it's like
they
you
did
do
that
good
good.
work.
It's like, all right, I'll shut the hell up and give them a minute.
you do.
Like
but
Phoebe,
you do that.
Phoebe, you two. I mean, between the two,
I
of you,
love Phoebe.
You two are on the same. I always wonder why you two didn't hate each other because you two are on the same wavelength. But she's over here, you're over here. I was like, please don't you two ever go against each other. It's like you
no,
both got your thing. It's like
Yeah.
I see what she can do. I see what you can do. It's like just stay on both sides of the fences. Leave each other the hell alone.
No, I think
You both will shine.
Yeah,
Leave
no,
it alone.
I love her to death, and I wish her every courtesy. I wish her well every single day. And the good thing about some of the work, whether it's an artwork or music or film, you have a different style that people are going to gravitate towards. Like, I want that person to do this job for me because that's what I need right now. And next thing that I need, that doesn't really fit. This person's style fits in better. So let the people be smart enough to know. And of course, we're all petty and we want to, like, I want to be the king of everything. But when it really comes down to it, it's like realize that you're all in the same boat. Respect each other, help each other. Phoebe called me and said, you know, hey, can you help on a shoot? Of course I would help. I've helped her on other stuff. It's like she's helped me on stuff.
Like I said, I was just using that as an example.
No.
Phoebe's on that, you behave yourself. But yeah, like I said, you just
Wait, she's going to watch this? Phoebe, you're great.
Phoebe.
No, she knows I love her. But yeah, I think there needs to be you can't just say I'm the only person that does, you know, I'm Eric, I'm the only person that does music here in this whole area. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you be successful, the guy next door will be, the band down the street should be. I mean, everybody should be the same thing.
Yeah.
And build your own fan bases.
And like you said, we're all going to hit different levels at different times. It's just, everybody just be cool to each other. Be a little competitive, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, why not? As long as it's good fun and you inspire each other, why not? I mean, but just don't sit there and tear each other down, which I've seen too many times. That's the worst thing. It's like, this guy sucks, and it just, the rappers beef, I understand that was more of a publicity thing with what they've done with each other, and that has helped them greatly, but I don't see that for the rest of us. That worked for them. It's not going to work for us. But if you're going to get a little competitive, like, you could have done a better riff in this song. Oh, really? That's like, okay, we'll do. Oh, that scene sucked, man. You could do better. Oh, really? I'll remember that for next time. It's just, it's inspiration that helps us all to grow. Just don't let it get out of hand, y'all.
Right.
Well, man, I think we've had a hell of a conversation on this.
It's been good.
Hell yeah. Oh, yeah, we got to get back to the artwork. We got to get this in.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. They're great pieces, man.
Oh.
And I've had questions about them, but we'll just take a minute and discuss them.
Okay.
Like I said, this is this creature feature. I mean, how long have you been doing artwork with this?
Since I was artwork, I've been doing since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Superheroes, monsters, since I was all the way up through.
Okay.
But the artwork has evolved through different things. So I've done different styles of art. You know, whether it's comic book art or I was trying to go really photorealistic for a time, and then I'd go over here and I'd just do sculpting instead and clay things, and then I would go over here and like the prosthetics thing and the makeup. That was its own kind of an art, or the body painting, that kind of a different style. So I like that kind of tentacles are going in different directions, and I can still touch on a lot of different things. So these two are like some of the last remaining ones of a series that I had done on like classic horror in silhouette with weird background. That's what the series is called.
Like I said, this is the part I love art. I really do. Like you said, you've seen my small collection. You haven't seen the room that I have other artwork stacked in, but it's something that I know nothing about. But the finished product is what I see, and there's some things that connect with me. And like I said, this is different for everybody. Same as music, same as filmmaking. We can tie this right back around. But there's some artwork that, like when I seen the one of Ashley's, the one of Jinx that I have upstairs, it's just, and the ones I've seen some of yours. Like I won't mention the one that you have. We'll talk about that later. But there's some ones that just connect with me, and I'm sure these two right here. There's somebody out there who's like, I really want that. But there's that's the thing with artwork. It
relates. It's different people at different levels, of course. Yeah.
You know, and like I've seen ones with certain scenes, like I gotta have that, or at the very minimum, I'll contact the artist, be like, I gotta have a reprint of that. Would you mind if I did it? I always do that. I never do anything less. But there's a process to doing any type of artwork. Like what you're doing here, like the ones we've had up on the wall before. Everybody's got their thing, which I'm sure we could go. This could be a whole other 3-hour process of how everybody does things, which I'll stay away from. But yours are your own. Like I said, I don't know.
I've got a very short attention span,
okay,
and I can only devote so much time to doing something. So,
there's
artwork like the one that's over there that your friend had done. That seems like, wow, that's very involved. That's a lot of hours in that. That's a lot of thought and all. And to me, it's like, and I hate to say this, but if for either of these, to me, it was more of a challenge of like, what can I do in like 2 hours? 3 max. So these are part of a series. This one was sold and it's on loan back to me right now. But somebody had saw, that's Barbara Steele from a movie called Black Sunday. It was a promotional poster that I did a variation of. And so that someone's actually right after this snatched that one up, and so it's back on loan from them. And the Karloff Frankenstein's monster here. This has been to a couple of shows, and this is the last remaining one from a series of 5 or 6 in the same kind of thing, where it's the silhouette kind of knockout against the background.
Like I said, you have plenty more in the Rod Stewart. I know you had one of him, or was it from lead singer of Rolling Stones? The other one you had.
I had one that was let me see. I had a Hendrix back in the day. I did a Beatles one back in the day. I had one from that actually someone just got recently from London After Midnight, which is another Lon Chaney movie. The guy in the top hat. I'd have to go back through. But then even with these, at the same time I was making these, I did a different series of these. God, I can't remember the name of what the line was, but I did 5 or 6 paintings like Yay, just a close up of faces, but there were trailer park people, like they're from the same community, and not to like the like.
Oh, I think you're talking like Trailer Park Boys or something.
No, like just like a community, but like a little down on their luck, a little like character, a lot of heavy lines, stuff like that. And 2 of them are in. The guy who owns the bagel shop downtown had bought, and they're up near the bathroom. So if anybody watches this and they go to
the bagel
All Star Bagels on Market Street. So you go to the bathroom and you see the man and the woman up there. So those are like a couple from that series that I had done.
Okay.
And I've got some of the ones back at home because we closed the studio and I've got them back at the house now. So, but a whole different style than what these are.
Yeah.
So to me, if I get bored easily, and I always want to know what can I do in just a few hours. I don't want to spend a week on any work at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to keep moving on. So to me, that's the evolution of the whole thing.
But it's something you've taken the time to have a formula for, and this is, I'm like I said, these look great. I'm becoming attached to this one more and more as the days go on.
Oh, thaninks.
So that one might be buying me here before too long. But
I had a big crush on her, Barbara Steele. Look her up. She's like from the '60s, black and white days.
Yes, when you sent me the information, that's the first person like, oh, okay. Like Steve had that was a young crush or something there.
She was amazing. I wasn't even born when she was doing her thing, but yeah, beautiful girl. But yeah, so these are the last couple in that series, and then I moved on to other things, and then now I'm actually working on a new thing, and I say I wanted to get things done in just a few hours, but I'm setting myself up for failure right now because I've got really big canvas, like 4 foot by 5 foot, and I'm doing now recreations. There's an artist that did stuff for Marvel Comics. Jack Kirby is his name. If you know like artwork, comic artwork, he's like the king. He was actually called Jack the King Kirby. But very identifiable style to his work. But I'm doing recreations of some of his comic book covers, but they're going to be like this big. So full color, painted out and all that. Yeah. So I'm going to start those. That's going to be more than a few hours.
I would think so.
But I'm going to have a great time doing those. So I'll do those and see if people like them. And if they don't, I'll keep them. If they love them, then I'll do more. Then it's just seeing what the market wants. Like people kind of...
Well, not only that, I'd imagine with these, like you said, you had to take the time. Like I could see you have this. This is a layer on top of a layer. You started this layer first, and then this is on top of that. But obviously you had to take...
everything.
Well, it's not even that. It's just, I understand. Like you took it, even though you say it's a few hours, before this, you've taken the time to realize what you had to do to make what you see right here. Mm-hmm. It's not like you just threw this together in 3 hours and this is how we ended up. You spent years before this designing the background and then putting this however you do. Like I said, I can't tell you what you're doing in this, but I know the end. I know the end product. This is what I see. But like I said, you've taken the time to create this pattern to, or at least the idea of how to make these on how you see them at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not like it's something, like you said, it's not a 3 hour contact every time. There was something that took progression before this was ever a concept.
I have no problem telling how I do things. And,
if you want to, that's up to you.
It's not a big deal to me. And actually, there's something I learned when I was much younger, when I was first getting into makeup effects. Mm-hmm. To me, the number one guy who's kind of started the whole thing, and people might question this, but majority of people agree with me. But there's a makeup artist, Dick Smith was his name, pioneered the whole effects thing. He did The Exorcist and Amadeus and
Okay.
Altered States, and he's just known for changing the way we look at makeup on camera. The Godfather, that he did.
Okay.
So his mantra was, I will share everything that I know about everything. This is how I make blood. It's, chemical, chemical, chemical. This is how I do all my prosthetics. This is how I sculpt. He wasn't secretive about anything. He knew how good he was, and he's like, fuck it, I've got jobs. I mean, I know what I'm doing here. If someone wants to take all of my stuff, they're not going to do what I do. They're going to do their own thing.
Yeah.
So if I'm telling them how I do all my stuff, I don't feel like I'm in competition with them, because they're going to wrap it around their own way of thinking and become a different kind of a person, but just have a better understanding and go into their own world. He was never paranoid or freaked out over people knowing how he did anything.
Yeah.
And I learned that as a kid, and I've been the same way since. So if anybody says, how did you sculpt that? What's your process for painting these? What materials do you use? I will tell everything. Video, it's like, what do you use for this? Lenses, cameras, how was that effect? You share everything. Because they're not going to be you. They're going to be, how'd you get that sound on the guitar? It's like, trade secret. It's like, no, that's, what kind of a dick move is that?
Sense.
Just say, it was this pedal, it was this effect, and I recorded it in the garage. That's how I got that sound. Why don't we do that? We should share everything.
You got a very good point on that. Because I've talked to other music, like I said, what you just said, I've met other artists that have said the same thing to me. It's like, they're straight up saying, this is what I did. Try it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But all the while, you tell them that, but you're working on something that's like, okay, I've already done this. We're going to move to this. I'm going to add this and do this. So you have no problem being honest and telling them how it was.
Yeah.
It's not like you're holding on to that for me. You're growing. And I've
Right.
often asked every producer with guitar players, I'm like, how'd you do that? And they're the same way as you. It's like, I just did this, messing around, threw this pedal on, I threw this effect on, I threw this on, we moved the mic this way. It's like, oh, thanks, man.
We should all
use it
be
all
doing that.
use it at your leisure. I'm working on something else right now. By all means, knock yourself out.
We should all be doing that, honestly. I mean, why?
Yep.
We shouldn't be so secretive, because then you're not helping anybody else get better. And by holding on to, if you develop something and you have a patent on it, I understand you don't want to give up all the secret. But if it's like, what did you use for that? I mean, were you standing up high? Was it flat? Was it up on an easel? Why do I care what I share about something? Because I'll go into something else and do different.
Mm-hmm.
If someone comes out with this exact same thing next week, like, we're taking all the old Universal monsters or old 60s things,
Yeah.
and we're doing a silhouette knockout against a pre-painted background with different colors,
Yeah.
because it's cool and people like it. I'll do something else then. It's like, you want to copy after me? I'll go over
Exactly.
here and fine, follow me my whole life.
Yeah.
I'll do
When I'm
20
done, I'll
20
give you
more
my
things.
secrets, but I'm going to be on to something else by the time you get caught.
Yeah, and you'll be like, how'd you do that? It's like, well, I'll tell you that then, and then I'll move on to the next
Yep.
thing.
That makes perfect sense. That's a very good. Listen up, young artists. But like you said, we all got to take something from each other. We inspire each other all the way up, and
Yeah.
some of us get forgotten, some of us don't, some of us, it's a very funny game. But at the end of the day, we got to love what we do.
Yeah, very true.
But I think we should end it there.
Yeah,
It's
we've
been
been
a
like
damn good
5 hours
conversation.
or something now.
It's only 2. It's maybe 2. It's still recording, so we're still good. But at the very least, what's the worst? You can come back on a few weeks. We can shoot the shit again.
I think we're good. Anyway, watch Eric's music video.
Don't you be doing no plugs. But he will be doing a separate edit for, like you said, you're going to get the full conversation with us shooting shit, and I love that part. But he's going to do an edit and explaining some of the things we've talked about, the videos he's done, the videos he's done with me, the videos he's done with other artists, the paintings. I'm going to put up a separate episode with him doing edits, and you can see what this man does. It's phenomenal. And until next time, I think we call it good for the night.
Cool, man.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody. We're out. I need a drink.